Well, I look around today and I see lots of adults. See lots of young adults and established adults, senior adults. But regardless of your age, how well are you doing at adulting? Now, adulting is newer to our cultural vocabulary. It's been around in the past 10 years. And adulting, the definition is something like this. It's the practice of behaving in a way characteristic of a responsible adult, especially the accomplishment of mundane but necessary tasks. It's things like keeping plants alive, or going to bed on time, getting a job that pays the bills, or folding that massive pile of laundry. This is adulting. And it kind of sneaks up on you. It's a bit like this meme says at best. It's like when you're looking for an adult to handle the situation and then realize you are the adult. You're like, uh-oh, that's adulting. That's the face of adulting right there. And, it can feel in life, right? Like all of these responsibilities, they pile up faster than we can actually deal with them and steward them. And so at the end of a long, hard day of adulting, often I think it feels a bit like this, too much adulting for one day. Anyone feel that like that little guy sometimes? I feel like he gets me, Now, adulting, whenever we win at adulting, it can feel really good. And if you have any wins in the areas of responsibility and being self-sufficient, you can think of them and just be like, yeah, I feel proud of those. Just last week, my wife and I, we hosted a birthday party for my daughter Audrey's 10th birthday. And it was a sleepover party. So there were like 12 girls running around the house. And, we fed them. Megan got them to give up and go to bed by midnight. And we didn't lose any of them before their parents came to pick them up the next day. And so I call that an adulting win, feel good about that. But I think a lot of times we feel the opposite. I think we feel like, hey, can I pause this whole adulting thing and can I just lower the difficulty level for a minute here? Because, whew. And you know what? It's good to adult. Like nobody wants failure to launch, but it's also, it can just be hard, right? In fact, a recent survey shows that about 71% of people agree that it's harder to be an adult now than it was 30 years ago. And I think, okay, on one hand, people like we today, we don't have to churn butter or walk uphill both ways. But on the other hand, life has just gotten way more complicated, right? We've got all these technological gains that have messed with childhood and our mental health. And, people today, they're delaying milestones like driving and dating, young adults are. And then even for established adults, we play less and we have less social support networks. And we're grappling with things in our world like the rising cost of housing. We know that over the past 30 years, the price of the average home has gone from about 3.5 times your annual income to almost 6 times your annual income. And I don't know, have you guys been grocery shopping lately? Anyone? Have you seen the prices? Now, whether or not you actually believe it's harder to be an adult today, or that it was harder when you were younger, it's not really the point. The point is that achieving true self-sufficiency, the universal truth, is that meeting all of your needs on your own, no matter who you are, when or where you live, has always been and will always be a challenging endeavor. Sooner or later in life, we all find ourselves in situations where the resources at our disposal are inadequate to the challenges in front of us. And maybe that's financial resources. You feel like you just don't have enough in the bank account. Sometimes we have unmet relational or emotional or spiritual needs. And there's probably some need you can think about, every one of us can think about right now, that is unmet and that feels like too big for us, right? There's something in our lives you could probably go, I just don't know what I'm gonna do about that. And so when you find yourself there, when you run out of options, what do you do? Do you turn to your friends or your parents? Do you turn to HR or your church? Do you max out the credit card? Do you ignore the problem and pretend like it doesn't exist? Do you eat a pint of ice cream or a basket of fries? I don't know. Not that I've done that, but it's just, what do you do? It seems like, for me, like when we can't get our own needs met, I take up the full-time occupation of worrying about it. Worrying about what's beyond my control and about my unmet needs. But today, for all of us who worry, God has a promise to bring us comfort. And we find this promise in Matthew chapter 6. A bit of it was read a moment ago in the service, but this is Jesus speaking. He says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?" These are powerful words. Jesus tells us, therefore, do not worry. Which on one hand, feels a bit unhelpful. Don't worry. That's great. That's great advice. I haven't tried not worrying. Like, thanks. That'll be great. That'll fix everything. And I don't know about you, like in my life, I have not found it to work very well to just decide not to worry. And oftentimes when we hear people say, do not worry, it sounds a bit trite, or it sounds like our needs are being invalidated, or it can even come from a place of like our worries are like making them uncomfortable. But this isn't where God is coming from when he says, do not worry. God has better reasons for saying do not worry. Chief among them is that it's not good for us to worry. He says that in this passage, right, that it doesn't add any hours to your helikion, to your lifespan. It's funny, this word helikion, in other contexts, it can mean your stature or your height. And so take it from me, a guy who on and off in his adult life has had lots of anxiety, and I've had panic attacks and struggled with worry. At 5'7" I can tell you that worry has not added an inch to my height. And I can tell you that worry has not seemed to add to my longevity either. In fact, worry often consumes from us. It takes from us our most precious resource, which is our time. It's a non-renewable resource. There's a great quote which says this, that worrying means you suffer twice. It robs from you. And so it's not good for you. It doesn't add any hours to your lifespan, to your helikion. And it also keeps us from seeing what we have. When we worry, it keeps us focused on the stuff that we lack. And I don't want to diminish the feeling of not having whatever it is that you feel you lack right now. Like, that doesn't feel good. But sometimes I do think we need some perspective. We have to remember that compared to the first century Jews who'd be hearing these words firsthand, compared to 16th century peasants, like, we have it so good, don't we? Like, would you just turn to your neighbor and say, we have it so good? We do, right? I mean, compared to so many people around the world and throughout time who have lived in severe lack of the basic necessities, we are richly blessed. We have running water and sewer systems, and we have a cornucopia of food on our plates, in our fridges. We have a closet full of clothes. We have choices and options when it comes to our education and our jobs and hobbies and our elected leaders. And sure, we may not be able to eat out twice a week or go on that dream international vacation. We may not be able to remodel the kitchen or count our trophies, on just shelves and shelves, and we may not be able to count our close friends by the dozen, but the vast majority of what we lack, the things that we worry about, are luxuries. They're not basic needs. This is what we have to realize. And it seems like in every generation, we want what our parents had, but we want it far sooner than they had it. And then we want more. And this is just what we do. In this passage, it humbles me. Like food, drink, clothing, like these things, a handful of loving relationships, the basic necessities I have never lacked. And I've just realized, like, I've been so privileged. And some of you know that I come from a large family. And the reason why I have a large family is that my parents have a heart for adoption. And so here I am. We've adopted a number of kids from China. Here I am in 2004. I went with my mom to pick up my sister Ella, who's now a student at Texas Tech. But if families who have adopted kids from impoverished situations, they know a couple things. There's a couple things that check out, and that's that often that first set of clothes that you put on your kid, that first pair of shoes you give them, they do not ever want to take those off because they know the situation thus far in their life, which is that if they take those off, they might not ever get those things back, and so they keep them on. And so I remember with Ella, with my other Chinese siblings, like they were like, nope, these clothes, I'm gonna wear these till the day I die. These shoes, like you're not taking them from me. They would go to bed fully clothed and in their shoes because they treasure these things. They don't want to see them disappear. And likewise, when you get them home, there's a common thing, which is food hoarding. That often, like these kids will squirrel away bits of food in a hiding place because their existence up till now has shown them that they don't have a reliable source of food. And it just hit me, realizing, seeing this firsthand and going like, I have taken so much for granted. Seeing these kids treasure these basic necessities that I have just taken for granted and assumed would always be there for me. And that's a dangerous thing for us. Whenever we take things for granted and we worry, those are the two key behaviors of someone who is on the hedonic treadmill. Now, the hedonic treadmill, I know you might not be able to read this, but the basics are that in life we tend to think it would be really good if I had that thing. I'll be happy, I'll be satisfied, life will be really good when I get that thing. And then we work for it, we receive it, and we go, wow, this thing's amazing. Like, I have all that I've ever wanted, I'll never want for anything again. This is amazing. But then a little bit of time passes and we go, that was nice. And then we go, well, I have this thing, but you know what? So-and-so, they have even more. And wouldn't life be great? Wouldn't I be truly happy when I get that thing? And we get stuck on this hedonic treadmill. Jesus, he tells a story in the scriptures about a man who just builds bigger and bigger barns for himself in order to store more and more wealth and, make sure a life of luxury for himself. And I just go like, are you on the treadmill? Like, we have to be on the treadmill in some respects, right? And in some ways, we all have to be on the treadmill. So I think it's more of a question of to what extent, right? Are there things in your life that you've been going, I'll be happy when? I'll be fulfilled when? Have you received all the things that you once thought you would ever need, but now it's not enough? See, Jesus teaches us we have to get off of the treadmill. He teaches us that the good life isn't found in luxuries and it's not found in the basics either. It's found in something else entirely. Jesus says, is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? There's more to life. And we have a saying about this. It's that the best things in life are free. right? The best things in life we know aren't about the supplies of survival, but are instead about things that are beautiful, things like sunsets and first kisses and holding a baby and making a difference. Like these are the higher goods in life. And Jesus teaches us that, yeah, we do need certain basics in life. It's true. I could give you that. There are certain things we can't live without, and we certainly don't want to live with zero thought whatsoever toward tomorrow. Like that's true too. But God says, he teaches us, don't worry. And the reason he teaches us don't worry is because he also makes us a promise. He promises us this. He says, why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon, in all his splendor, was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. In other words, what Jesus promises us is this. He says, I will give you what you need. I will give it all to you. And if we need proof, if we need reassurance that this promise is in effect, he says, look at the grass, look at the flowers, look at the birds. Look at all of creation that testifies to God sustaining us and providing for us. And so what I want to do is I want to do a little exercise. I want us to close your eyes. It's not a trick, I promise. But I want you to think about the most beautiful, pure place in nature that you have ever been. Think about the landscape, the colors. Think about the perfect temperature and what the sun is doing and the breeze. Think about the little creatures that might be there. And then after we've thought about all these things, just step back and take it all in. The whole scene. And let it just overwhelm you and fill you with wonder at God's generosity. And if this paradise, this earth was enough for Adam and Eve, could it be enough for me? Even if we feel anxious about what we lack in other areas of life, we'll know we'll always have the gift of creation. And even if that's all we had, wouldn't we have all we need? I want you to open your eyes and I want you to say this promise of God with me from Philippians. It's another way of saying it. God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. God promises to meet all of our needs, and he has. He sent his son, Jesus, to die and to rise in order to have all of our needs met by our God and Creator, so that we might be fed with the promises of his word, so that we might be clothed in his righteousness and redeemed from the power of sin. He sent Jesus in order to make a way so that God would prepare a dwelling place for us in his house. God in Jesus has provided for everything that we need. And the God who meets all of these needs, the God who restores our relationship, the God who meets all of our spiritual needs, who gives us everything for the next life, he will not fail to give you your daily bread for this one. And I know it can be hard for us to think about that, because I don't know about you, I think like, has God really kept this promise? Has it checked out in my life? Like I often go, when I think about my past and the times when I've been in need, Like, how is this promise applied then? And for the people throughout time and around the world who have been in lack for the basic necessities, how has this promise landed for them? And what we have to realize about trusting God's promise is this. A few things here. God promises to provide us what we need, not what we want. And we've all heard this before, and I think we know this, but I think we have to recalibrate to it often. I want Wagyu steak. I need 2,000 calories a day. All right? I want clothes, a huge wardrobe of lots of different clothes that will turn heads whenever I walk into the room. I need to stay clothed and warm. All right? I really want, a beautiful house full of furniture that would make Joanna Gaines proud. I need a roof that doesn't leak. Right? And so God gives us what we need, not necessarily what we want. And second, we have to, and more to the point really, we have to re-examine our preconceived notions about what it looks like for God to be a good provider. Because so often we take our preconceived notions of like, this is what good provision looks like for me. This is the stuff that a good provider would give me. And then we don't have those things and we go, well, I guess God might not be a good provider. But instead, we need to assume to start off with this understanding that God is the ultimate provider. And therefore, he has already given me everything I need. And if the thing that I want isn't within my grasp, then I don't need it. And then if we can adopt this mindset, then we can go, maybe this job, maybe this house, this handful of loving relationships, maybe all this is enough. Maybe what God has given me now is all I need. Maybe even more than I need. Because the truth of the matter is this, that you don't know what you need until you see what you can get by on. Pastor Dion said that this week, and I just thought it was so true, is that we don't really know what we need until we can see what we get by on. In my wife Megan's family lore, there is a story in her family history of a summer where there was no TV. There was a summer where, they were frugal, the TV died, but instead of buying a new one, they were just like, well, we'll just live without it this summer. And so she and her sister had to live a whole summer without TV. And guess what? They survived. And I think there's moments like this where we realize like, I guess I didn't really need that thing. And more to the point, these moments show us, they reveal to us that the miracles of God, the miracles only happen when our resources fall short. This is when God shows up. When we are in need is when God reveals himself and provides for us. I've been on my last $1,000 so many times. That's when God always seems to show up and the miracle happens. Like I just have stories I could tell you, and I'm sure we could all think of stories, but we have to realize that sometimes it's good even for us to intentionally get by with less in order to leave space for the provider to work the miracle, and for us to remember that we have a provider it's not me, it's not you, we have a provider, and that he gives us everything we need. This is a huge part of the spiritual practice of financial giving. The reason that we tithe or give offerings, yes, it honors God, yes, it provides for ministry, but one of the main functions is heart training. It helps for the provider in me to be undermined and the provider in God to be highlighted. This is the important function that it serves. And it reminds us not to just build bigger and bigger barns, but that tomorrow is truly in God's hands and not to worry about tomorrow. That's what Jesus says. That's where he ends this dialogue. He says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. I have a college friend, Joel Menzel, who actually wrote a song about this passage, an aspiring singer-songwriter. And when he wrote the song about this verse, he didn't realize he didn't have a whole lot of tomorrows left. My junior year of college, he was killed in a head-on collision. One day, like the grass, he was there, and the next he was gone. And when he died, I remembered that he'd been recording a CD, and I went back and was able to listen to some of the tracks and listen to the song based on this verse. And I could hear him singing these words, and I can still hear him singing them, singing, don't worry about tomorrow. Each day has its trouble. So don't worry about tomorrow. And those words, they became prophetic for me, like a prophetic voice from the beyond, speaking to me and reminding me that the things I so often worry about concern days that are far into the future. And guys, I worry a lot. Full cards on the table. I don't know about you. I worry about things like making sure I stay fit in order to avoid preventable health issues down the road. Or things like paying for my kids' college, and I got 4 kids, so how am I gonna pay for that? I worry about things like, hey, how can I grow as a leader to be ready for, whatever comes for me as a leader down the road? What skills and habits and disciplines do I need to add, so that I can just be a Swiss Army knife, ready for anything? And yet, like, who knows what I will need? Who knows what needs I will have thousands of tomorrows from today? Who knows, what things God will lead me into or permit to happen in my life, or even how many days might even be left. And so should I spend my time today worrying about a theoretical tomorrow? I mean, Joel, he knew the better way. He reminded me with his song, and he still reminds me that whatever I need for whatever days lie ahead, God will be there to provide. And whatever resources I need for that day, he will add to me. And God will lead me through life. He'll lead me over mountains. He'll lead me through valleys and even to the other side of death. And so today, can you trust, can you believe Jesus's words that if you seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, if you seek the higher goods of life, that he'll provide the lower ones too? And can you stake your satisfaction in life on what he has already given you, which is in your hands today? And can you give him your worry, knowing that everything you need, he has it and will provide in due time? Father, you are faithful. Lord, your promises are good. You keep your promises. You know what you're doing. And so God, today we trust. We trust in you and we testify that you provide.
Thank you for joining us and being a part of our online Pathfinder community.
Yeah, if you're new, you can find helpful links to resources in the description below or at pathfinderstl.org. And while you're there, you can also find all of our message podcasts, which allow you to listen to the weekend messages on the go. So wherever you are, wherever you're going for Thanksgiving, driving, flying, you'll never miss out on a message from us.
That's right. And this service is so impactful. This series has been so important to share the needed words that we hear from Jesus, and we can use those every day. So why don't you share those words and bless others? Share this service, share this message, and bless others. Hit that subscribe button, like, and comment. Every interaction helps these messages of Jesus spread. Also, one way you can help us spread this message even further is by supporting our work. You can do so at pathfinderstl.org/giving. It's your generosity. It just allows us to share helpful messages like this, as well as do other ministry-related projects.
Yeah. God bless you as you head into this Thanksgiving week, and we hope to see you here next weekend.
Have a good one.